What is going on? This is Michael Hacker with the Hacker Outdoors. Today I am joined by both Brian Hacker and Joey McCormack, where we talk about pirate history unfolding in New England, Joey's most recent bass fishing tournament on the Delaware River, and Michael continues his Musky Mania 2021 with another near miss. We hope you enjoy, and without further ado, well, we've got a doozy for everyone today. So welcome to the Hacker Outdoors podcast. Apologize for the lack of show last week. My bad, not these gentlemen's fault. I think I fell asleep at like 7 p.m. one night. It was horrendous. As always, just one of those like mind-numbing weeks. So I'm doing better, I promise. Welcome, guys. I appreciate you. Joined today by both Brian Hacker and Joey McCormack here. We've got a bunch of stuff to talk about, and I'm going to start with this because I was just telling Brian before we hit record here, and Joe, I don't know if I sent this to you, but I get some pop-ups once in a while for things that you may like, right, on the Apple iPhone. So according to Smithsonian Magazine, 17th century coins found in a fruit grove may solve a 300-year-old pirate mystery. Intrigue. Pirate mystery.
Pirate mystery.
So amateur historian Jim Bailey was mystified by Arabic writing on discovered loot. Long story short, in 2014, this metal detectorist, so this is a big thing. I actually was telling Brian, I joined before this all these forums on Facebook, I should say groups or whatever pages you want to call them, about artifact hunting in New Jersey, and just something I love. I enjoy history and I enjoy little trinkets, so I said, why not? I've got some cool stuff around my house that I found over the years. It'd be cool to kind of see what other people find, and maybe that's where they got it from. But basically, treasure hunters across New England uncovered more Arabian coins from the same time period, so 17th century. Early European settlers were not engaged in trade with the merchants from the Arabic world at the time. So how did they land in the colonies? So research conducted by this amateur historian basically helped piece together this whole story about the pirate captain Henry Every and how he basically melted into the New England culture. And doing so, of course, some of his pirate treasure had been spread around there. So Brian, do you want to give us a little update on that? That was kind of cool. I think it's an awesome story.
Yeah, the Henry Every, interesting story. He's actually one of the pirates who wasn't pirating in the Caribbean at this time. So this is right during the golden age of the Caribbean. And he went and he sacked, I think it was a ship from India. So it was I think what happened
Correct.
was the ship was coming from Mecca going back to India, and it was part of the what was the name of the Maja I forget the term for it, but basically the emperor of India at the time. And it was one of his ships, so it was loaded with his gold.
His ship was called the Fancy. Yeah, so he was in the Red Sea, so he could rob the Ganji Sawai. I'm going to slaughter that, and I apologize, which is the Indian Emperor Aurangzeb's ship. So that's, yeah.
And this is a real famous, very wealthy emperor at the time. And at the time, the East India Trading Company, which everyone that watches Pirates of the Caribbean knows very well at this point, they were running the world. They were the world trade. They were shut down from trading because of what happened when they robbed that ship. I'm going to get in the nitty gritty of it because a lot of bad stuff happened. Because people need to remember that pirates weren't good people. The vast majority of them were not good, and what they did was bad. But Every was the leader of this ship, and they caught a bunch of his sailors, but they never caught him. They caught his sailors, I think it was in Ireland, and then they caught some sailors in somewhere in the Americas. It might be in the islands, but they found gold doubloon with them in both places. So the common theory is that he was laundering the gold doubloon wherever he was going, and all the obviously everyone gets a piece on the ship. So it would make sense that he would be in Rhode Island or New England somewhere, and this is right when America was starting to get very wealthy. So I'm sure the Newport mansions, I'm sure one of those families have some kind of background related to this man. It's interesting.
I thought it was interesting, especially those of us who loved the Stars show, Black Sails, right? And in that, it's the kind of prequel to one of my favorite stories, right? Treasure Island.
Treasure Island.
And the captain in the story, not to ruin it for everyone, kind of something happens that's very reminiscent to this story. So if you haven't seen that, I would definitely recommend watching Black Sails. I absolutely freaking love that TV show. But pirates were horrendous people. Do not give in to the fantasy of it all. Joe knows all about pirates, pirates of the past world. But definitely cool. We'll link to it in the show notes. I thought that was interesting, and
there's actually a Pope pirate. One of the Catholics popes was a pirate. Did you know that?
No, I did not. What was his name?
I forget his name off the top of my head, but if you just Google the Pope pirate, he will pop up. He was remember the one time in period where the Catholic Church had 3 popes? He was one of them.
Yes.
Ranker.com, how a pirate became the Pope of the Roman Catholic Empire.
Makes sense. Money and power.
He was kidnapped, and then he just ended up becoming a pirate on his own, and then he went back and became a pope.
Wow. He reigned as Pope John the 10, 11, 12, 10, 20, 23. Pope John Paul the 23rd. Wow, get out of here. 1410 to 1415. That's pretty wild. That's learn something new every day.
It's called the Pope Pirate.
Pope
Wow.
Pirate.
And a lot of pirates said they're pirating off the coast of North Carolina.
It's true.
Where Blackbeard's ship is. You can dive on it if you go out with them. No, it's actually off of Beaufort, North Carolina.
Oh wow!
It's about 10 minutes from where my mother's place is.
Queen Anne's Revenge.
Well, we talked about this before on the show, and it just the whole, the treasure coast of Florida, right? Like you go after a storm, and like these guys find gold doubloons and Spanish coins, and like you name it. Like all this sorts of stuff washes up. Now, stuff like that happens from time to time here, and I think if you take a step back from pirate treasure, there's a lot of crap out there that people find. So on this treasure hunting forum, people are posting stuff that they find, like colonial coins, right? Like coins from the 1700s, 1800s,
so cool.
Buttons from the Civil War, right? Like, and they're, I think some of them are probably, metal detecting, we'll say, in places that they probably shouldn't be, but, we're not snitches.
If you go to a Civil War battlefield, you can find buttons pretty fairly easy, but you're not supposed to be on there doing that. That's very illegal.
Well, so New Jersey, in the state parks, you're not allowed to metal detect. I think wildlife management areas is the same thing. Some county parks and even local parks don't allow it either. But a lot of the guys and gals in the forum, it sounds like they go to old schoolyards, schools that have been around for, since the 1800s, maybe even beyond, go to places where they know that there used to be old structures, old dumps, and they just metal detect throughout there and find some pretty cool stuff. There was someone who found one of the first year that Coke made Coke, they found a bottle from that, which is kind of cool too if you're into bottles for whatever reason. But a lot of history out there to be found. So
the place to really look is if you know where old house was and you know where their outhouse was and you dig at that location, you will find so much stuff. So even though theoretically you're digging, well, that's any archaeological dig. I mean, that's one of the first places they look for, either the bathrooms where the bathrooms were or the dump.
The privy. I took an archaeology class, and it was funny that it was the first thing, and people were actually walking out of the class because he said it on the first day. He's like, we're going to talk a lot about privies here. He's like, because every archaeological dig, he's like, that's ever happened has started at the privy.
And X never marks the spot.
Never.
We can think about it. In the old days, when you're on the outhouse, you just throw anything down that hole, and that's what.
All your garbage. And they move it every once in a while. So,
like if you watch the the Sierra Gordo guy, the guy who bought Sierra Gordo. He
Yes.
found a lot of stuff.
Ton.
That stuff he found is where the dumps were, or like where outhouses were. Those areas.
Well, and also they were hiding stuff too. So like if you were
Yeah.
afraid of pirates or you were afraid of, theft, you would bring stuff to the outhouse or to the privy and you would hide, whatever, your jewelry or whatnot. Sometimes, bad things happen to people and, that stuff got lost into history. So you can find some really cool stuff out there in the privy. So let's see here. So we have, Joe, you had a tournament last weekend.
I did.
You had 2 tournaments in 2 weekends, no?
I had one last weekend.
So we didn't record last weekend. Or
it was
last
2 weeks ago.
I had one last weekend. And I have one this weekend, then I have one next weekend, then I have one the following weekend.
So tell me a little bit. You gave me a rundown on your way home as I was kind of running about myself. You were up here in the Dirty Jers.
Yeah. Well, technically we launched out of Pennsylvania, but we were on the Delaware River. It was good. I mean, no big fish were caught, but enough that I forget where I placed. 4th? I think I placed 4th in that, right?
Yeah, you said 4th.
Yep, it was 4th. So
it was
really good.
League was this?
It's the ABA, the Pennsylvania division, American Bass Anglers Association. Like each state has their own tournament trail.
And you were launching out of Pennsylvania into the Delaware River.
Yep.
And you came in 4th place. You were teamed up with the tour director. Am I wrong in that?
Well, paired. So it's everybody fishes against everybody in that series. I think it's called not the Open Series. I forget the name of it. But if you're coing, you're going against the boaters. You're competing against the boaters. Boaters, everybody against everybody. All for one. You're competing against everybody. So there's no co-angler class. There's no boater. So it's just overall whoever catches the best fish, wins. So my boater was the tournament director, and we had a good day. Later in the day, we made a little discovery late in the day. Actually, it was full high tide, and Delaware River, the tide has huge tide swings, like up to 6-7 feet on high tide. And we found this little creek, and it was some bizarre thing that we could not explain. Right outside the mouth of the creek, the tide was ripping in like you wouldn't believe, but for some reason the creek was sucking out. So it was doing the complete exact opposite of what was happening. And that creek, because it was sucking out, just like caused the fish in that creek to bite, where it almost seemed like it was pretty much almost every cast you could get a bite. Could have did better, but when you get paired with the director, he's got to get off the water earlier to set up for the weigh-in. So I lost about 45 minutes, probably really about an hour of fishing. That could have made a huge difference, but it's okay.
Yeah, but you still came in 4th, which is awesome.
Yeah, solid.
Can we go back for a second? I'm intrigued a little bit. So you're in the southern Delaware fishing here, right? So you're in the Philadelphia, Trenton area.
Yes,
for those of you familiar with New Jersey and PA.
Literally just south of Trenton was where we took off from.
So that actually is affected by the tides more than the upper Delaware, which I'm used to fishing. And when you were out, you were on this boat, and we were talking about, kind of what it is you were looking for here, right? You saw that the creek, the tide was kind of rushing out. How did you see that? What actually caught your eye? Was it how did it look? I'm a little confused.
So there's there were docks right here, like on our left side.
Okay.
And in front of us, we were like in front of us, the water like pinched down. There was a creek in front of us, and there was a creek to the right of us. And the water was pushing in so hard because of tide, like it was coming up in seconds. For some reason, I was looking at the creek to the right of us, passing there. I caught a fish, and I was watching that creek and just noticed that it was, for some reason, something was happening that was causing that creek to suck out while it was really supposed to be coming in. How it was happening, I can't explain. Like you can kind of understand if it's happening, if it's like if one end of the top part of the creek had the tide coming in, it was like pushing it back out. But I don't think that it was just a creek where it just ended up at, it was very small and it ended up at the top of it.
Well, there's only one explanation. I'm going to be honest.
Supernatural aliens.
Sasquatch.
Could be that. It could be that. I need like a drawing board to show, but like if it was like a horseshoe.
Joe, give us a play-by-play here.
Draw it out, Joe. Draw it.
If it was like a horseshoe creek kind of deal, like this, so like the tide was pushing from like the main river into it, like it would make sense that where it came back out somewhere else it would be pushing the water kind of, but that was not the case with this creek. It just like went straight up into this like industrial yard and stopped for some reason. It was sucking out there like you couldn't believe. Like
what in a situation like that causes the bass to go crazy, right?
You got to think of it as like a smorgasbord. They just sit there and all the baits just flying by them, so they can just go like rump, 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 and just eat it. No work whatsoever. That's exactly what it is. When that tide starts sucking, those fish will just kind of stay there, and it's just like a smorgasbord of just food coming past them, and they'll just come out and eat it. And literally, there was probably a period of 40 minutes where every cast, maybe except one or two, but I caught a fish.
And in a situation like that, if someone was to come across it, are you throwing what, paddle tails, crankbaits, or
I was throwing in crankbait, but it depends on the time of year what they're eating. I mean, when they're eating like that, it's kind of hard to go wrong. The guy I was fishing with, he was throwing the wacky worm. I was throwing a movie bait, and they were just demolishing it, absolutely demolishing it.
I love it. I love it.
That's just what happens with those tidal rivers. And
you had a better fishing day than I did. I was proud to hear someone did.
It can be tough though.
Yeah.
Well, it's
where are you this
in
weekend?
the Upper Bay with the MLF BFLs, and it hasn't been warm this week. It's been raining. It hasn't gotten very warm, so the temperatures are still going to be like right in that awkward position where they're really not eating a lot, maybe necessarily, because I know I was out there 2 weeks ago, and it was a club open tournament, and there's like 60 boats, and I think, what did I tell you, like only 13 boats caught fish. The guys in that tournament were not, they're the best of the best, and you have that many guys not catching it just tells you that it's a weird position. Maybe Saturday will be better because it's supposed to be the 60s and it hasn't gotten really cold, but
it was warm today. We had almost, I think it was like 61 or 62 today, which was beautiful. It wasn't much
different here. Rain.
I got to be honest, like I got a little frustrated again, right? Because I went out in the rain and was doing a little bit of musky fishing again. I posted on my story today. So this is, what's today, Wednesday the 14th. So I posted on today. It'll probably be expired by the time this comes up. But, I was the only one on the water for about an hour and a half. Did not canoe out myself, was shore fishing. But it was cold, man, and it was dreary. But there was so much sign of life, and we'll get to that in a moment. The kind of Musky Mayhem 2021 continues, right? But I go on the forums and I see guys catching fish, like they're catching bass, they're catching, muskies. Actually, the day after I was there when it was raining, this guy that I have met there a couple times posted a photo. He caught like a 43-inch muskie. So like, they're there. He was on a boat, of course, so that made life a little bit easier.
It was also after the afront too.
Yeah,
it was the second day of the front. So that's what it was.
Second day of the front, which is even weirder.
Yeah. So we had pouring rain, but I'm telling you, man, I guess we'll get into it now. Why the heck not? I saw bait fish leaping out of the water. Like you could see, like in the peak, like these tiny little seconds between the squalls that would come through, and where it would just be misting a little bit. You would see the bubbles. You'd see the carp kind of doing their thing, right? And then all of a sudden, you start to see like the water moving in certain directions, right? Like into the channels, and all of a sudden the bait fish would be leaping out of the air. And I'm like, oh man, that's where I need to get. So I had kind of repositioned myself on the shore a little bit, get to a place where I could cast. I was wearing waders, so I waded in a little bit where I could, right? I don't necessarily want to be standing in the water if I catch a muskie, but Brian's eyes are wide there. But sure enough, I saw a massive, probably 3 to 4 foot long muskie leap clear out of the water. Not just once, but like 4 or 5 times over the course of the 5 hours I was there. I had one on a finesse, and I messed up and I lost it. I was so pissed off, and I just wasn't ready for it. It was one of those strange feelings on the line. I, was not a bass. I can tell you that. I've caught plenty of them to know that. And the way that it fought, it just shook it, and I lost it. And that was the only hit I had all day long. Plenty of other wildlife. Had a bald eagle, saw a beaver or muskrat, not exactly sure what it was. But the bait fish were jumping constantly throughout the entire thing. So I think I'm on like 4 trips out so far, in my muskie hunt, I would say, since last year. So 4 times muskie fishing ever. I'm hoping to land one eventually. I gotta be honest, it's frustrating. And some guy did show up. He was on his boat for a little while, and we were chatting, and he said he doesn't like doing any other fishing anymore. He loves muskie fishing, and he said it's a hunt, and sure enough, it's a drag. But he's like, he spent an hour on the water. It was pouring so hard, he left. He didn't catch anything. But like I said, the next day, another guy that I had met there a few weeks ago, he was on the water, and sure enough, he posted a photo with that butte. So no muskies, man. And I feel like we're getting close to the end where I would safely feel comfortable catching one before it gets too warm or the water warms up too much. But Joe,
they say the people who like target muskie say like it's too warm. It's like the water gets like 72, 74. So you still got a good bit of a time.
Yeah,
give a month. Give a solid month.
At least it would be.
I wonder if they're still really cold. Really cold. I mean, because it's still cold down here.
It's like in the 50s, low 50s still.
Low 50s because
yeah.
Like I said, when I was out in the Potomac, the last time the highest I saw was like, what did I say, 62.
Yeah.
We were also in like a creek that like the average depth was maybe like 2 feet, 4 feet, and the sun that day was like up to 75. People I know who went out last week said they were still seeing temperatures there like 50s, mid 50s, maybe low 60s. So,
what's crazy is it was like an abundance of life happened out of nowhere when I was there. All of a sudden, I started hearing the frogs go at it. So I'm like, oh crap! Let me switch over to top water, right? Like perfect. You hear like literally in the pouring rain. It's freezing cold out. Even not freezing. It's cold enough out, right? Like maybe upper 40s, 50s, and pouring. And all of a sudden, there's like some sort of hatch or whatever the hell you want to call it, where the frogs start coming out of the the greenery and start swimming. So I'm like fishing, and all of a sudden I hear them, and I see this frog like learning how to swim in front of me, and he's like getting pecked at by like bluegills and stuff like that. And he's just kind of like trying to figure out his legs, and it was just super awkward. But I was throwing top water because I mean, if that's happening, like it makes sense that there would be some sort of action going on, but even on the top water, nothing.
Water temperature means more to fish than air temperature.
Yeah.
They literally go by the water temperature. That's like you can almost follow it 2 degrees, like within plus or minus 1. What they're supposed to be doing is really based on that water temperature. And when it's still cold, I know for bass aren't that active. They're not. Just kind of hunker down, do their own thing. And even like if the water temperature gets up to 64 or 65, they'll move up. But then if a cold day comes and it drops, they'll move right back down. I mean, they react to the temperature of the water, what they do. And it's pretty bizarre how they do it. So within those timelines and within the temperature lines, how they do it.
Yeah.
I mean, just like how those fish were there all day when I was fishing the Delaware. We didn't catch them pretty much all day until we found that crazy little thing where the tide was sucking out. And guess what?
Yeah.
There they were. That's just how they work. Like, so even though if the frogs are out there and you would think like they're here, they should be eating frog.
Well, it's just funny to me that like some of the fish were super active, right? And then you had like that massive apex predator freaking muskie leaping like a torpedo out of the water, like a surface to air missile or whatever, freaking launching after these bait fish, and then nothing else was eating. I mean, it was crazy. But then you had turtles that were going. You had the beaver or muskrat or whatever the heck it was obviously attacking stuff, and then you had birds. There was a eagle going. There was freaking hawks flying around. You had there was an abundance of life happening, even though it was pouring rain. The water temperature was cold, and it was a pretty cold day. I mean, it was cold enough, we'll say. But I would say a day on the water like that is well worth it. Being able to experience a lake like that by yourself or pretty damn close to yourself is pretty amazing. And I'll do it again, and I'll get skunked any day of the week if I get to be outside like that. That's my opinion. And although it's frustrating.
Sport fishing is very, very tough. I mean, you could be there at the perfect time all the time and still go months without catching fish. Months and months and months.
Yeah, Donna brought up a good point. I showed her a picture of the muskie that the guy caught the next day, and I said, "Look, this is the guy that I had met like a couple weeks ago." And she goes, "Oh my God!" She goes, "How would you even bring that onto the boat?" And I said, "I wouldn't. I mean, it would be very tough to land, but I put him in the landing net and then leave him overboard in the net, and take the hook out and just basically dump him. I mean, that's it. I'm not going to hold him. I'm not going to bring him onto the boat because obviously it's not exactly safe for the fish, and it's also going to be a pain in the butt for me in the canoe. But I think if I was on a canoe, on a kayak or something like that had a little bit of a flatter top, that I could just kind of plop him on my lap and have his mouth over here somewhere, and the business side of things here. I don't know, but I don't really see them thrashing. When you watch guys catching pictures of them, you don't see them really trying to attack you. It's kind of
just go limp.
Okay, here we are. But I'd like to, if I'm on the canoe, I'd like to at least have someone else on the canoe, so that way they can at least keep us on the straight and narrow, because
it's just like a pike, just bigger. So you bring pikes onto the canoe.
Yeah, and pickerel.
Put that thing in the net, put it up, gill it, and hold it up, take a picture, and put it back in the water.
Right. That's what the GoPro's for, because imagine trying to hold your phone out like this.
I know.
With the 42 inch.
Oh man, trying to get that into a photo, man. Holy cow. That place is packed with them, though. The guy I was talking to, he was shore fishing at the when I was walking out. He just had shown up. It cleared up a little bit, and he's like, "Oh, how'd you do, man?" And I was like, skunk, but I'm good. He's like, I was fishing here a couple of weeks ago, and I caught a beauty. I was like, "You always do it from the shore?" He goes, "Yeah." He goes, "Yeah, this place, man." He's like, "I'll tell you." He's like, "I had catfish attacking my he had a crankbait on," he said, "and the catfish was attacking the crankbait, just like you were talking about, Joe." And I was like, "Oh, my cousin talks about that. I've never seen it, but he swears a monster bass in there." He said there's all sorts of great fish. He said there's walleye in there, so whole different range of species you can go for in this.
Yeah, especially the walleye would be fun. I mean, the water, if there's deep spot with lots of bait, I'm sure there's walleye in there. I'm not a big fish eater, I told you this, but they taste really good. It is one fish that's delicious.
Well, I'm going to stop reminiscing about my Musky Palooza 2021 and move on. So, supposed to go for stripers this weekend. I'm kind of contemplating, I am contemplating actually not going to the beach for stripers, and instead go to the Delaware and try and get a shad. They call it the poor man's tarpon. I've got a nice little spot that I can go to. My buddy was down there. Joe, you laughing at that poor man's tarpon?
I'm laughing. You're catching shad now.
I told you, I just want to catch everything, man. It's hard to
You're gonna go to the Delaware and you're gonna catch a striper. That's what you're gonna do. You're not gonna.
It's true.
Shad, you're gonna catch a striper.
You are.
And I'm gonna catch a monster brown trout and probably a muskie. That's the way it's gonna work, because there's huge muskies in there. But it's funny, trying to retrain your brain.
Last weekend, I saw about 20 guys catching stripers left and right on the Delaware. So just be forewarned. Don't get your hopes up for a shad, because I didn't see one damn gigantic shad swimming around.
As long as I break my skunk, I'm good to go, man. I don't even care what it is at this point. I just want to get something.
Catch a sunny.
Well, you know what? That's what it's going to come down to. Is I'm going to take the fly rod down to the lake and just toss it in there like tiny little flies, and I'll catch a sunny or something that way. But I'm hoping that this weekend, I don't know, we'll see. Maybe the shad run's happening, man. It's They look fun. I've been watching a couple of videos of it. They do look awesome to catch.
I don't know why they call him a poor man's tarpon, because my buddy Jesse, last time we were on the Potomac, he snagged one of those, and that thing just went dead weight. Like, no. And that was snagged in the back of the dorsal fin. Usually when you get one to snag in the dorsal fin, any fish,
it
you feel like you have a whale.
crazy.
Like,
Yeah. I don't know.
Try it. I don't know.
Oh, hey, you know
what are the shad called? I mean, what subspecies of shad are they?
I have no idea.
Because you sent me that thing. I'm looking at it. I'm like,
well, I'm sending you pictures. Yeah. So here you go. First thing when you Google it, Delaware River Shad Fishermen's Association. Look at this. This guy's a hog, man. Hold on, let me see if he's got pictures up here that I can share. Shad recipes. No, they not have photos on here. Are you laughing at?
Oh, shad recipes.
It's hard to like jump.
It looks like
from
a giant
species to species.
Kind of. That's an American. The American shad run.
Yeah.
On the Delaware River. Yeah, I guess they get bigger.
Yeah, there's two people holding this one shad in the photo on top here.
Sounds like a nuisance
yeah.
fish.
NJ Department of Fish and Wildlife here. Oh, that's a whole nother thing we can talk about. That was hysterical. But here you go. Lewis Fishery Report, 4/13/21. What a beautiful night on the river, clear and sunny. This is on the New Jersey government website. Not the gray and damp we had on Monday night. The water temp was 59 degrees and the height was 2.7. We continued with the 200 yards of net. We brought in a total of 67 shad. We kept two bucks in 17 roe. We returned 48 shad, 3 catfish, and 2 gizzard shad. So there are gizzard shad in there as well. There you go. All right. So 59 degrees on the Delaware. Lewis Fishery Report.
Yeah, but you notice how they said they were fishing during the night?
Yeah.
Shad are really active during the night.
Well,
that's the one thing you also got to keep in mind.
It seems like that's the time of night or time of day rather, to be catching stripers too.
Yeah, they start spawning at 65.
And here you go. For those of you who do fish for the shad, they are saying that anglers are asked to report American shad in the Paulins Kill and Muskinecton rivers. So they're trying to see how they're moving their way back in there. As the river herring or alewife and back herring are rebounding in there, they seem to be kind of making their ways up there. So that's kind of cool. So you can catch them in the Muskinecton and Paulins Kill, which is nice. This website, for those of you who have never gone through your Department of Fish and Wildlife or DC, whatever, it is absolutely hysterical. If you go, I had no idea that we have where the heck is it? It's the, what did I say? What did I say it was, Joe? It was the, they have a meeting.
Oh, the meeting. Oh my God.
It was absolutely hysterical. So anyway, so they do this meeting, I guess quarterly or something like that, where they have this board of directors for the fish and wildlife, and they open the floor up to, questions, comments, whatever. And as you can imagine, in the world that we live in now, there's no in-person meetings, so it's Zoom, which means that every Tom, Dick, and Jane can dial in and say whatever it is that they want during the whole thing. So while the comments were pretty hysterical. I'll link to it in the show notes. I don't think I need to get into it here, but pretty freaking funny. We did have a bunch of updates. I thought it was pretty awesome. Skillful Angler Program, we talked about it before. So far this year, the largest muskie caught was 50 inches, right?
The big muskie.
That's a big muskie.
Big fish.
Largest northern pike was 35 inches. Largemouth bass, this one was for you, Joe, 22.5 inches.
I wish they would give the weight though.
Yeah, me too.
So this is for catch and release only right now. So
weigh that thing, put it back in the water.
You would hope, but yeah, a lot of guys don't.
Like if you talk to for example, the pond that Brennan's working, company and the 2 ponds that Brennan's managing, he's got the head biologist for MLF. He's a big fish biologist throughout the country, working with them. Really track these fish. You need to be catching them. What you're supposed to do is you're supposed to weigh them. You're supposed to weigh their girth, like measure their girth and their length, because that tells them whether or not they're healthy, what age they are, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Because you could get a 22-inch fish and it could be, what did he caught one that was like 19 inches and was like 2.5 pounds. And that fish is older and dying, is what the biologist told him.
Yeah.
So, my 2 cents.
Well, let's pivot from fishing. So, Brian, you're looking to sell some boards?
Yeah, I was actually so I've been watching there's a, I guess you'd call him a surf coach out of Australia. His name's I'll give him a shout out. His name's Kale Brock. His vlog is Kale's Broccoli or something like that. It's on YouTube. It's a great series. A lot of like
is he a vegan?
No, I don't think so. At least I don't know. He seems like he's Australian. You can't be Australian and vegan. Let's be honest.
You can, man. There's a lot of vegans and hippies down in Australia.
I doubt it. But he does a lot of like surf content, like surf heavy, how to train, how to get better on land, things like that. And he just started a series about what the like basically it was kind of like an everyday man stab in the dark series. So those listeners don't know stab in the dark. It's basically where they give the pro surfer like 10 different surfboards just with numbers all blacked out, so they don't know which shape or shaped what, and then they ride it in whatever conditions they have that day, and they try to rate them and see which one's the best. Well, this one he's doing it better because they have the urban surf wave pool down in Australia somewhere, I don't know where, but it's the same wave over and over and over. So he got all these people to send him surfboards, and he's going to leave them all at the wave pool after for the wave pool's quiver, and he's going to test them all. And it got me thinking, it was time to refresh a little bit quiver wise. So I'm gonna post some boards, I think, on the marketplaces and see who wants what. And I'm gonna sell three and just get one. But yeah.
What are your thoughts? What do you want at this point?
So I have right now, I've been riding this one primarily. It's even on bigger days. It's a 510 Lost RNF Retro in the C4 technology. And it's like basically they put it's a layer of cork top on the top and bottom, and it just creates instead of putting a stringer in, and it's made of EPS, and it's real strong. And I could tell you guys, all listeners that surf, I've surfed this board exclusively for a year and a half, probably I'd say 24 sessions, and I'm a heavy guy. Not a single ding on it. I pulled the wax the other day. Not a single ding. So the tech is strong, and my one thing is when it's kind of an onshore day, it's a little chattery. As a heavier guy, once again, it doesn't really bother me, but I could see a lighter person it being an issue. So it's the only downfall. But so I've been riding that primarily. So my thought process here is to jump onto more of like a standard shortboard, like a everyday shortboard. Not quite a groveler.
What constitutes as an everyday shortboard?
All right, so my literage. So everyone kind of breaks down to liters now, more than how long the board is. So this one's a 510 37 liters. So that's for my groveling surfboard.
So if I can just jump in for a second,
of course.
Can you explain a little bit about the literage? What does it mean? Is it
So the liters on the board is the displacement of water per inch of the foam. So depending on how much foam is left on the board, that determines how much liter and how much float it's going to have. So the reason why people go by that when they try to find like a surfboard is because it dictates how much float you have when you're paddling around in the water. So like for example, when you go surf the wave pools, it's fresh water, so you're going to have to get a higher liter because there's less surface tension in a salt water versus a fresh water.
Now that literage, does it change per weight of the surfer?
Yeah. So so right now I'm about 180. So I always go a little bit extra. Foam is your friend. That was always kind of how I was taught, at least my surfer cousin down there. So the more foam you got, the better. So 37 for most people would be like, top end, kind of like when it's 2 foot and onshore, that's the board they would ride during the summer. This is for me is a perfect board when it's, let's say 2 to 4 foot, maybe even a little more if it's a little chunky and not too steep. I'd be riding this board at 37 liters. For a short board, let's say when it gets to chest high or better, or if it's like waist high and, more hollow and above, anything when it gets real kind of hollow, which Jersey gets hollow a lot, you would want what I would call an everyday short board. And the leaders you would have in that board, and a lot of shapers are kind of frown at me talking about this leader because they don't think that really matters so much, but I think it does, because it really controls how much bite you get into the wave. And the more square the wave is, the more bite you want. And the rails have a lot to do with that, but how thin and how far you are sinking into the wave, that has a lot to do with how it performs in those waves as well.
Yeah, so more foam's going to make you float easier and catch the waves easier.
Exactly. Yeah. So the short board, I would go like 30, 34. So 3 liters less, and I'd go a little longer, probably like 6'2" on my standard short board. But I might even go a local shaper on this one. I really like the guy Brian Wynn. Every time interaction I've had with him, I've been a fan, and everyone seems to like him. Obviously watching this, looks like I always like swallowtails for short boards. For the people who don't know, that the tail would be like that. My short board I've been riding.
Picture a swallow, and that's what it looks like.
Yeah,
the back of a swallow.
Exactly.
The bird.
I just appearance wise. The other, or I would go a round tail. Not a big fan of squash tail, and that for me is just literally just on aesthetics. Performance wise, I know people like squash because it releases better, but for me, I think the swallowtail and the round tail have better range when it comes to waves. So the swallowtail you can kind of grovel on if it's a little smaller, a little fat section, you skate it over it. On the round tail, same deal, but it does a little better in the barrel if you're getting barreled, which I don't get barreled too often, but I always try.
Don't we all?
Yeah, you want to be able to go out there and surf. You don't have to wait for the perfect day where it's pits and just like you get in this dream conditions, because you don't get those often. I mean, Jersey gets them more often than a lot of places, but still, it's not frequent.
No, maybe once or twice a month. People,
right?
It's max. But
there's no such thing as a perfect time or perfect day for anything, right? And that's why you make the most of the days you have, right? Most of us are what I would call weekend warriors, where we're doing things on our time off, and if it's not perfect, you're still gonna go. I mean, obviously, if it's horrendous blown out conditions, you're not going to do it, right? But if it's just knee slappers or ankle slappers, you're still going to do it.
Absolutely.
Why not? Yeah.
Back in the day, you guys probably might be a little too young to remember this. All the kids wanted were shortboards, because they would just see these guys out there ripping, like pipe and like these like small little short boards with no foam. And then they would get to Ocean City, Maryland, and they would have like a 5/8 thruster and like just couldn't catch a single damn thing.
Yeah.
Like, it was nice to see that fad's kind of going away.
Yeah.
But Brian, I remember in the day, was doing the like thicker foam, and like he's been on that for a while.
And he's back in Jersey, and I'm giving him a lot of airtime here, but he's
I'm sure he appreciates it.
Yeah, I'm sure. He's a hockey fan, so I'll give it to him. But he it seems like he's a fan of the foam as well. Even like like everything he posts that he's shaping right now, it looks like everything's thicker, and it seems like a lot of people are going to mid sizes, mid lengths. I toyed with the idea of jumping on a mid length, but to be honest, I have a 7, I think it's 7.6, and then I have a foamy I ride too, which most days, and I have I'll just jump away from Brian Wynn conversation. I had a guy we used to surf with back in the day. He was actually a roommate of my main surf buddy. He told me in Jersey, you need to always have the right board for the right day. So in his car, every day he had 4 boards, and four boards of like varying sizes and lengths. And it was just every day he would go to the inlet, and he would only surf the inlet, and he would go look at it, decide which one of the 4 he's going to grab. You'd grab that one, and you'd go have a good time. To me, that always stuck. So nowadays, whenever I go surf, doesn't matter when. I mean, we always have sneaker swells. Always, you know, like it says 2 feet 10 seconds. You can have that high waves. But I always have 3 or 4 boards in the car just in case. But you know, Brian's he's shaping some good stuff, and everything looks really, really nice and clean. So you know, it might give him a chance.
He makes good boards.
Yeah, you know,
definitely does.
You owned a
yeah,
surf shop,
we carried his boards for a while. Yeah, we liked them a lot.
Oh, that's awesome. Guys, we are nearing the top of the hour here.
Awesome.
Even though we started a little late, I'm gonna call it. It is
cool.
Guys, I appreciate it. Thank you for tuning in. And if you like what you heard, please give us a little like, a subscription, a comment, all of the above, please. If you like Joey's face, I'm gonna go ahead and switch my view here to gallery so you can see him making the goofy face. You know, please do so, and we'll join you again next week to talk about a little bit more stuff as we truck along. Maybe Joe will win a tournament. Maybe I'll catch a
big one this
weekend.
Shad. This is the big one. I'm not going to catch a shad. If I catch a shad, I'm going to keep it. I'm going to freeze it and mail it to your ass.
If you could, please, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to unfreeze it. I'm going to put it on a hook and toss it in the water. And reel
okay,
it in
we can do it.
They got it.
Yeah. They got one. Yeah.
Got one.
Yeah. Well, did you get your GoPro? Let's do that.
I told you. I have to go to South Carolina. Brennan has it.
I thought he was mailing it to you.
You told me to get him to mail it to me. I'm back. I'm down there. Like what's today? I have this tournament.
3 weeks.
I have another tournament in the Bay, and then that's on a Sunday. I think I'm going down that Monday or Tuesday, because then we have May 1st on Hartwell.
It's coming quick, man.
I will bring it home with me next time.
You better, man. You better.
Alrighty, Whitey.
Brian, get out there and do some trout fishing this weekend. I want to see some pictures.
Might do that, or sneak out and get a surf in. Looks like a little bit of swell, maybe.
He's gonna surf.
Yeah, go surf and use your GoPro.
Yeah, you're right. Actually, funny enough, I put it on the charger this afternoon, so it should be ready.
Well, it should take 3 days to charge, so I think you're
You might
at
this point, right? You haven't used it in that long. All right, guys, I appreciate you.
All right, later, guys. See you
later.